While cleaning my husband's car, I found a tube of lubricant under the seat. My hands froze. I didn't say a single word, just slipped it quietly into my apron pocket. My heart was racing, but my face remained calm. Later that night, when no one was watching, I swapped it with a tube of industrial glue. I screwed the cap tightly, put it back exactly where I found it, and smiled to myself as though I had just planted a secret trap. I thought I was in control. I thought I was clever. I had no idea that one small act, done in silence, done with a quiet fury in my chest, would flip my entire life upside down. That single moment would become the key to secrets I never imagined my family was hiding. And let me tell you, what happened next, not even Hollywood could write it better. But before I take you deep into that storm, let me pause and introduce myself properly, because you're about to follow me through the wildest journey of my life. My name is Margaret Brown, but everyone calls me Grandma Maggie. I'm 67 years old, speaking to you right now from Tulsa, Oklahoma. If you're listening, make sure you hit that subscribe button, like this video, and turn on your notifications so you don't miss the rest of this story, because trust me, you won't want to. And before we dive deeper, tell me, where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments below, because I love to know where my listeners are tuning in from. Now let's go back to where it all began. It was a Saturday morning, the kind where the sun shines just enough to make the grass sparkle, but not too hot that you sweat. My husband George had left early, saying he was going to help a neighbor fix a fence. Nothing unusual there. George was always lending a hand. I was home alone, tidying up as I always did. That's when I decided to clean his old Chevy. That car had been sitting messy for weeks, and since George always drove it around town, I figured I'd surprise him with a spotless interior. At first, it was just normal cleaning, fast food wrappers, old receipts, a couple of loose coins under the mat. But then, under the passenger seat, my hand touched something smooth and metallic. I pulled it out. That's when I saw it, the tube. A tube of lubricant. My heart thudded so loud I thought the neighbors could hear it. Now you might think I immediately exploded. But no. I've lived long enough to know that rage isn't always the best weapon. Sometimes silence is sharper. I stared at it for a long time, thinking, imagining. Was George hiding something? Was he using this for something he didn't want me to know? All kinds of ideas ran wild in my head. That's when the idea came to me. Without hesitation, I slid it into my apron pocket and decided I wouldn't confront him. Not yet. I would wait. That night, after George had gone to bed, I went into the garage. I keep a little stash of tools and supplies there, because over the years I've learned never to depend on anyone else for fixing things. Among my boxes, I found a tube of industrial-strength glue I had once bought for a broken chair. I unscrewed the cap, checked the thickness, and smirked. Then I grabbed the lubricant from my pocket, swapped them carefully, and placed the glue right back in the car the next morning. It felt wickedly satisfying, like I had planted a silent bomb that only time would detonate. But I didn't know when or how. Days passed and George acted normal. He didn't mention the car or the tube or anything unusual. For a moment, I wondered if maybe I had overreacted. Maybe it wasn't what I thought. Maybe it was nothing. Life went on quiet and ordinary. I baked pies, visited my grandchildren, went to church on Sunday. George laughed and joked like always, but the secret sat heavy on my chest. And then one Wednesday evening it happened. George came home later than usual. He looked pale, shaken, like he had seen a ghost. He went straight to the bathroom and stayed there far too long. When he finally came out, he wouldn't look me in the eye. He sat at the table, his hands trembling. And for the first time in decades of marriage, George lied straight to my face. He said, "I had a long day at work, Maggie. Just tired." But I knew something had gone terribly wrong with that little tube. And I knew that my quiet revenge had just opened the first crack in a dam that was about to burst. And just when I thought I had the upper hand, the phone rang. It wasn't a normal call. It was the kind of call that makes your blood freeze. A woman's voice. Strange, urgent, trembling. She said my husband's name. She said my name. And then she said something that made my knees buckle. That was the moment my whole world tilted sideways. The phone rang again, sharp and loud, as if the whole house knew it carried bad news. I picked it up with trembling fingers, pressing it to my ear. "Hello," I whispered, though I didn't know why I was whispering. George was sitting right there, staring at the table like it could swallow him whole. "Mrs. Brown." The woman's voice came fast, nervous, almost broken. "Please, listen to me carefully. Your husband, he's in trouble. And you don't know half of what he's been doing." My breath caught in my throat. For a moment, I couldn't speak. George's head snapped up, his eyes wide, and he mouthed, "Who is it?" I didn't answer him. "Who are you?" I finally managed. "What do you mean trouble?" The woman hesitated. I could hear cars rushing in the background, like she was calling me from the side of the road. Then she said something that burned itself into my brain. "Check his car again. Not just under the seat. Look deeper. Before it's too late." And then she hung up. I stood there, frozen, the receiver heavy in my hand. George shot up from his chair, stormed over, and yanked the phone cord out of the wall so hard the plastic cracked. "Who was that?" he barked. His face was red, his hands shaking. I had never seen him like that. "I don't know," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "A wrong number." But he knew I was lying, and I knew he knew. For a long moment we just stared at each other, two old souls suddenly strangers. Then, without another word, he grabbed his coat and stormed out of the house, slamming the door so hard a picture frame fell off the wall. The silence he left behind was worse than the shouting. I sank into the chair, my mind spinning. What did that woman mean? What else was in the car? My curiosity burned, but so did a new fear. If George didn't want me to know, then maybe it was something dangerous. The next morning I made up my mind. While George went to work, I went back to the Chevy. The air smelled like old leather and dust. I pulled out the seats, checked the glove box, the trunk, even under the floor mats. That's when I found it, an envelope taped beneath the dashboard. My hands shook as I pulled it out. Inside were photographs. At first, I couldn't make sense of them. George standing with men I had never seen before. George shaking hands in dark parking lots. And then George handing over money, thick bundles of it. The worst photo of all? George wasn't alone. He was with another woman. Her face was blurred in the picture, but the closeness, the way his hand rested on her back, told me everything I needed to know. I dropped the envelope, my heart breaking, my mind screaming. I wanted to cry, but anger was stronger. Anger that I had spent 40 years of my life cooking, cleaning, raising children, building a family. And now I had to see this? But before I could even process it, I heard footsteps outside. The garage door creaked. George was home early. I shoved the photos back into the envelope and stuffed it under my sweater. He walked in, his face tight, his eyes scanning me like he already suspected. "What are you doing out here?" he asked. "Cleaning." I lied. My voice cracked. He didn't believe me, but he didn't push it either. Instead, he grabbed his car keys and said, "I need the Chevy tonight." I swallowed hard. Tonight. That meant the trap, the glue would finally spring. I should have felt satisfaction, maybe even triumph. But instead, a knot of dread twisted in my stomach. What if that woman was right? What if it wasn't just another woman he was meeting? What if it was something worse? That night, George left without saying a word. I watched from the window. The envelope clutched in my lap, my hands sweating. Hours passed. Midnight came. And then 1 a.m. And then sirens. Not just one. Several. Flashing red and blue lights raced down the street. My heart stopped. They were heading in the same direction George had gone. I couldn't sit still. I grabbed my coat, stuffed the envelope into my bag, and drove toward the noise. The streets were alive with chaos. Police cars lined the block. A crowd had gathered. And right there, under the glow of flashing lights, was George's Chevy. Her lips shaped the words so clearly that I didn't need sound to understand. "Your turn." My body went cold. The crowd around me blurred. The flashing lights felt distant, and for a moment, I couldn't breathe. Who was this woman? How did she know me? And why would she say that? I blinked, and just like smoke in the wind, she was gone. I spun around, searching the street, but she had melted into the night. My hands trembled as I gripped the steering wheel, driving home in silence. I didn't even notice the tears streaming down my cheeks until they blurred the road. When I got home, I collapsed onto the couch. The house felt different now, hollow, hostile. Every clock ticked louder. Every creak in the walls sounded like footsteps. I pulled the envelope from my bag and stared at the photographs again. My husband, my George, the man who had held my hand through childbirths and funerals and holidays, was in these pictures like a stranger. His eyes were hard, his mouth set, his posture secretive. The young woman appeared in more than one photo, always close to him, always with that same unsettling confidence. For the first time in my life, I felt like a guest in my own marriage. The phone rang again. I nearly jumped out of my skin. My hand shook as I lifted the receiver. This time it wasn't the woman. It was the police. Mrs. Brown? This is Officer Daniels with the Tulsa Police Department. Your husband has been taken into custody. We need you to come down to the station tomorrow morning to answer a few questions. Questions. That word stabbed me. What did they think I knew? What did George drag me into? I agreed in a weak voice and hung up. Sleep didn't come easy that night. I tossed and turned, hearing George's voice in my head, seeing that woman's cold smile. At one point, I sat up and stared at the wall in the dark, whispering, "What did you do, George? What did you do to us?" Morning came heavy. I dressed carefully, choosing a plain gray sweater and slacks, the kind that made me look small and harmless. But inside, my stomach was tied in knots. At the police station, the air smelled of old coffee and paper. Officer Daniels, a tall man with a kind face, led me into a room with a table and 2 chairs. "Mrs. Brown," he said gently, "we need to know how much you were aware of your husband's activities." I frowned. Activities? He slid a file across the table. Inside were more photographs, different ones this time. George in a warehouse. George exchanging envelopes. George with men whose faces screamed danger. And then the bombshell. George with crates. Crates labeled not just with money, but with drugs. I covered my mouth, shaking my head. No, he wouldn't. Daniels leaned closer. "I believe you, ma'am. But the evidence is strong. We think he's been involved in a smuggling ring for at least a year. Possibly longer." The room spun. My husband. The man I trusted with my whole life. Smuggling. Drugs. Lies. But the worst part wasn't even that. The worst part was that a voice inside me whispered, that's why he needed the lubricant. Not for anything personal, but for business. For his secrets. Daniels kept talking, asking if I had noticed anything unusual. Elite. I lied through my teeth. Because how could I admit that I found the tube? That I switched it with glue? That I had planted the very trap that might have blown everything wide open? When I left the station, the sun felt too bright. My skin prickled with shame and fear. People walked past me like nothing was wrong, but my world was collapsing. At home, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the photographs until I felt sick. Then I heard the sound. Top, top, top. Someone knocking at the back door. My chest tightened. Slowly, I stood and walked toward the sound. Through the glass, I saw her. The woman from the photographs. The same one who had smiled at me last night. She didn't look afraid. She didn't even look nervous. She stood there as if she owned the place, her dark hair shining, her eyes sharp. I should have locked the door. I should have called the police. But something stronger than fear pushed me forward. I opened it just a crack. "What do you want?" I whispered. She smiled again, that same unsettling smile. "To talk. Just you and me." My hand gripped the edge of the door. "Why should I let you in?" "Because," she said softly, leaning closer, "your husband isn't the only one keeping secrets." The air left my lungs. My mind screamed at me to shut the door. But my hand betrayed me, pulling it open wider. She stepped inside like she had been here before. Her perfume filled the air, sweet and heavy. She looked around casually, her heels clicking against my floor, and then she turned back to me. "Nice place," she said. "Shame if anything happened to it." I swallowed hard. "Who are you?" She tilted her head. "Call me Clara." "That's enough for now." "Clara," I repeated, tasting the name like poison. She sat at the table, crossing her legs neatly, as if this was her home, not mine. Then she leaned forward, her voice low and sharp. "Margaret, I know what you did. I know you switched the tube." My heart nearly stopped. Her eyes glittered. And because of that, you're part of this now. Whether you like it or not. I gripped the back of a chair, my knees weak. My voice cracked. What do you want from me? Clara's smile widened. Simple. You're going to help me. Or else. She paused, letting the silence stretch, her eyes locked on mine like a predator. Or else, she whispered. You'll lose more than just your husband. Her words cut through me like a blade. Lose more than just your husband. I forced myself to stay calm, though my hands trembled as I pulled out the chair across from her and sat down. What do you mean by that? I asked. Clara leaned back, her arms folded, eyes never leaving mine. George is finished. The police have him, and they'll chew him up until nothing is left. But you, Margaret, you're clean. At least for now. Which means you're useful. Useful? I whispered, my throat dry. She smiled, tilting her head. You have something they don't. Access. Trust. The police will treat you as the grieving wife. No one will suspect you. That's why you're going to work with me. I shook my head quickly. No. Absolutely not. I'm not part of this. Clara's eyes darkened. She leaned forward, sliding a folded piece of paper across the table. My hands stayed frozen in my lap, but my eyes dropped to the paper. Written across it, in neat handwriting, were the names of my grandchildren. Their ages. Their schools. My heart stopped. How do you? Clara cut me off, her voice ice cold. Don't underestimate me. If you refuse, I won't go after you. I'll go after them. And I promise you it will be quick, and it will be silent. I gasped, the room spinning. My hands gripped the edge of the table, so tight my knuckles turned white. Please, they're just children. Then do as I say, Clara replied smoothly. She stood, brushing invisible dust from her skirt. Tomorrow you'll receive instructions. Follow them, and everyone stays safe. Fail me, and you'll regret it. She started toward the door, but then paused, glancing back at me with that same chilling smile. Oh, she added casually. And Margaret, don't bother calling the police. If you do, I'll know. And I'll act. Fast. The door closed behind her with a soft click, but the silence she left behind roared in my ears. I sat there, shaking, staring at the paper with my grandchildren's names on it. Tears stung my eyes. My husband was in jail. My life had been turned upside down. And now this woman, this stranger, had walked straight into my home and chained me with fear. I pressed my hands together, whispering a prayer I wasn't sure anyone could hear anymore. Lord, give me strength. Because I don't know what to do. But deep down I knew. Whatever Clara wanted from me, I would have no choice but to obey. And just as that thought settled in my chest, the phone rang again. I jumped, my heart hammering. Slowly, I reached for it, lifting the receiver to my ear. This time, it wasn't Clara. It was a man's voice. Low. Urgent. Deadly serious. Mrs. Brown, he said. If you value your life, do not trust Clara. She's more dangerous than you think. The voice on the line was steady, low, and urgent. Mrs. Brown, if you value your life, do not trust Clara. She's more dangerous than you think. My grip tightened on the phone. Who is this? A pause. Then, a friend. For now, that's all you need to know. I swallowed hard. My heart was pounding so loud I could barely hear. How do you know my name? How do you know about Clara? He sighed like someone tired of running. Because I've been watching her. And your husband. For months. My knees buckled. I sank into the chair, clutching the receiver as though it were the only thing holding me up. Watching? Why? Who are you really? I can't give you my name, he said firmly. Not yet. But I will tell you this. Your husband got tangled in something he couldn't handle. Clara's not some innocent woman caught in the mess. She's the spider in the web. She pulls the strings. My mouth went dry. And my husband? The man hesitated, his silence heavier than words. Finally he said, George made choices. Bad ones. But Clara, she made sure he had no way out. She lured him. And she'll do the same to you if you let her. I closed my eyes, shaking my head. She already has. She knows about my grandchildren. She has their names. My voice cracked, the words trembling with fear. She said if I don't obey, they'll. I couldn't even finish. The man's tone sharpened. That's exactly how she works. Fear. Control. Lies. Listen to me, Margaret. Clara isn't just some girl. She's tied to people far worse than your husband's partners. She's clever, ruthless, and she won't hesitate to hurt anyone in her way. You need to be careful. Very careful. I clutched the phone tighter. Then tell me what to do. How do I protect my family? For the first time, his voice softened. Do what she asks for now. Don't let her suspect you're questioning her. But stay alert. She'll slip. And when she does, I'll contact you again. Before I could respond, the line went dead. I sat there, staring at the phone in disbelief. 2 strangers, 2 threats, 2 warnings. My husband in jail. My family at risk. And me, stuck in the middle like a pawn on someone else's chessboard. The rest of the day crawled by in a fog. Every sound made me jump. Every shadow felt like Clara's eyes on me. I tried to eat, but food turned to dust in my mouth. I tried to pray, but even my prayers felt fragile, thin. By evening, I finally drifted into a restless sleep on the couch. But just after midnight, I woke to a noise outside. Top, top, top. I froze. It was the same sound as before. A knock, but not at the back door this time. At the window. My heart thundered as I crept closer. Pulling the curtain back just a sliver, I gasped. It wasn't Clara. It was a man. His face partly hidden by the shadow of his hood. He motioned urgently for me to open the window. Fear clawed at me. Was this the man from the phone? Or another trap? I hesitated, but then I remembered his words. I'll contact you again. With shaking hands, I unlatched the window. The man slipped inside quickly, silent as a cat, and shut it behind him. He pulled down his hood, revealing sharp eyes and a face marked with years of wear. Mrs. Brown, he whispered. I nodded, my throat tight. He held up a hand. I don't have much time. They're watching me too. Who are you? I asked again, more desperate this time. His eyes flicked to the door, then back to me. My name doesn't matter right now. What matters is this: you need to get out of this house. Tonight. My breath caught. What? Why? Because Clara isn't bluffing, he said grimly. She doesn't just threaten families. She uses them. If you stay here, you're putting everyone in danger. She knows this house, she knows you. You have to move before she makes her next move. Panic rose in my chest. Move where? I can't just. Sure. He cut me off, his voice low and sharp. Don't argue. Pack a bag with only essentials. Cash ID, clothes. Leave everything else. You have less than an hour. I stared at him, trembling. And my grandchildren? She knows where they are. His jaw tightened. That's why you need to do exactly as I say. There's a safe place, but you have to trust me. Trust. The word twisted in my gut. I had trusted George, and look where that led me. But what choice did I have? I whispered. And if Clara finds out I'm gone? His eyes darkened. Then she'll come after you harder. And when she does, it won't just be words and threats anymore. The clock ticked loudly in the silence that followed. I realized he was serious. Deadly serious. I opened my mouth to respond, but before I could, headlights flashed across the living room wall. A car pulling into the driveway. The man's eyes widened. He grabbed my arm, his voice a fierce whisper. It's her. Clara's here. Headlights flooded the living room, stretching long shadows across the walls. My pulse hammered in my ears as the man squeezed my arm tighter. Stay quiet, he whispered. Through the curtains, I saw Clara step out of a sleek black car. She looked different this time, no smile, no softness. Her hair was tied back, her face sharp with purpose. She moved quickly, like a woman who knew exactly what she was coming for. My knees wobbled. She can't know you're here, I breathed. She won't, the man replied, his eyes darting around the room. But you need to play your part. Keep her distracted. Whatever happens, don't let her suspect you're leaving. Before I could respond, there was a knock at the door. Hard. Not the polite kind. The kind that demanded entry. Margaret. Clara's voice called sweetly from outside. It's me. Open up. I looked at the man. He gave a firm nod, then disappeared into the hallway, melting into the shadows like he'd been doing it his whole life. With trembling hands, I unlocked the door and pulled it open. Clara stood there, dressed in black, her eyes gleaming under the porch light. She carried a small leather bag, which she clutched tightly. "Evening," she said smoothly, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. I forced a weak smile. "Clara, it's late." "Business doesn't wait for daylight," she replied, tossing her bag onto the table. She looked around, scanning the room carefully. For a split second, I thought her gaze lingered on the hallway where the man was hiding, but then she turned back to me. "I came to see if you've changed your mind," Clara said. "About helping me." My throat tightened. I told you I'd do what you asked." Her smile returned, but it wasn't warm. "Good. Then tomorrow, you'll make your first delivery." She opened the bag and pulled out a small sealed package. She placed it on the table between us, sliding it forward like a dealer passing cards. I stared at it, my stomach churning. "What's in it?" Her eyes hardened. "Don't ask questions you don't want the answers to. All you need to do is drop it off. Easy. No mistakes." I nodded slowly, my hands trembling as I pushed the package closer to me. My mind screamed, "Don't touch it," but I had no choice. Just then a faint sound came from the hallway. A floorboard creaked. Clara's head snapped toward it, her eyes narrowing. The air in the room went heavy, suffocating. She turned back to me, her voice low and sharp. "Who else is here, Margaret?" My mouth went dry. My heart pounded. The man was still in the shadows, and if Clara discovered him, I knew something terrible would happen. I forced a shaky laugh. "No one. Just me. Who would be here this late?" Clara's eyes searched mine. Then, slow as a blade being drawn, she reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a gun. She pointed it at me. "If it's really just you," she whispered, "prove it." The cold metal of the gun glinted under the kitchen light. Clara held it steady, her finger resting lightly on the trigger. Her eyes locked on mine like a hawk circling prey. "Prove it," she repeated, her voice silk wrapped around steel. My breath came shallow, my chest tight. I forced my lips to curl into what I prayed looked like a nervous laugh. "Clara, really? I'm a 67-year-old grandmother. Do I look like the type to hide people in my house?" Her gaze didn't waver. Even grandmothers can lie. The silence stretched, thick and suffocating. My mind screamed for me to stay calm. If I so much as flinched, she'd fire. And if she searched the house, she'd find him. The man who had slipped in through my window. The man who said Clara was the spider at the center of this whole mess. I swallowed hard. "If you don't believe me, look around. You'll see it's just me here." Her smile was thin, dangerous. "That's exactly what I plan to do." Clara moved toward the hallway, her heels clicking softly against the floor. Panic surged in my chest. If she went down there, she'd find him. And then it would be both our lives on the line. "Wait," I blurted out, my voice sharper than I intended. Clara stopped, her head tilting slightly, the gun still raised. She hummed, turning back to me. I forced myself to keep talking, to stall her. "You don't need to search. I told you I'll do whatever you ask. Isn't that enough? If I were hiding someone, would I really agree to make your delivery tomorrow?" For a moment, she studied me, her eyes narrowing, as though peeling back layers of my soul. Then slowly she lowered the gun. But she didn't put it away. Instead, she smiled again, that same chilling smile that made my stomach turn. "Clever," she said softly. "You almost sound convincing." Almost. The word cut deep. She didn't fully believe me. She circled back to the table, picked up her bag, and snapped it shut. "Tomorrow noon sharp. Corner of 5th and Main. Drop the package off in the alley. Don't look back, don't talk to anyone, and don't make mistakes. If you do..." She tapped the gun lightly against the table. "I'll know." I nodded, my throat dry. "I understand." Clara studied me one last time, then slipped the gun back into her coat. Without another word, she walked to the door and let herself out. The sound of her heels clicking on the porch and the slam of her car door echoed in the silence. A moment later, the headlights swept across the walls and then she was gone. I collapsed into the chair, shaking so violently I thought my bones might shatter. My hand clutched my chest, trying to steady my pounding heart. The man stepped out of the shadows, his face grim, his voice low. "You bought us time." "Barely." I spun toward him, anger bubbling up with my fear. Time? That woman just pulled a gun on me. She has my grandchildren's names, she has me trapped like a rat. And you say I bought us time? His jaw tightened. Yes. Because if she had gone down that hallway, we'd both be dead. The truth in his words sank in like a stone in water. I pressed my palms to my face, whispering through my trembling fingers, I can't do this. I'm too old for this. I can't. You can, he interrupted firmly. You don't have a choice. I dropped my hands and looked at him, tears stinging my eyes. Then tell me what to do. 'Cause I can't keep lying. I can't keep pretending I understand what's happening. He crouched down, his sharp eyes meeting mine. Tomorrow you'll make the delivery. Just like she said. But while you do it, I'll be watching. And together, we'll start pulling the threads of Clara's web until it falls apart. I shook my head weakly. And if she finds out you're helping me? His expression darkened. Then she won't give you another warning. She'll kill you. And she'll kill me. The words hung in the air like smoke. My hands clenched into fists. I thought of my grandchildren, their names written on that paper. I thought of George, locked in a jail cell, his mistakes dragging us all into hell. And I thought of Clara, her cold eyes and her gun pointed at me. Something inside me hardened. Then I'll do it, I whispered. I'll make the delivery. But if we're going to fight Clara, we do it smart. And we do it fast. The man gave a small nod, approval flashing in his eyes. Good. You've got more fight in you than you think, Margaret. I almost smiled, but then a noise shattered the moment. Glass. Breaking. I jerked my head toward the sound. The back window, the very one the man had slipped through earlier, exploded inward. A brick clattered across the floor, shards of glass spraying everywhere. I screamed, covering my face. The man grabbed me, pulling me behind him as he scanned the darkness outside. A note was tied to the brick with red string. He bent down, snatched it up, and ripped it open. His face went pale. What does it say? I asked, my voice trembling. He looked at me, his jaw tight, his eyes grim. Then he read it aloud. You're already dead, Grandma. The note slipped from his hand and fluttered to the floor like an autumn leaf, but the words clung to me like frost. You're already dead, Grandma. My whole body shook. My breath came in short gasps. They know, I whispered. They know about me. They're watching us right now. The man scanned the yard through the shattered window, his shoulders tense, his jaw tight. Stay down, he ordered, crouching low. His eyes flicked back and forth, sharp as a predator's. But outside, the night was empty. Just shadows and silence. I gripped the edge of the counter to steady myself. If they wanted me dead, why send a note? Why not just? My voice trailed off as the answer hit me. Fear. They wanted me afraid. They wanted me trapped in my own skin. They're not here to kill you, the man muttered. Not yet. This is Clara's way of reminding you who's in control. A bitter laugh escaped my throat. Control? She doesn't need to remind me. She already has my life in her hands. The man turned sharply, his eyes locking on mine. No. That's what she wants you to believe. But you're stronger than she thinks. You just need to play the game long enough to strike back. I shook my head. You don't understand. I'm not built for games. I'm a grandmother, for heaven's sake. I should be baking pies, not. The words broke off in a sob. My hands covered my face, and I sank into the nearest chair, my body trembling with exhaustion and fear. He knelt in front of me, his voice gentler now. Margaret, I know you didn't choose this, but you've been dragged into it, and now survival means doing things you never thought you'd do. You can handle it. I've seen that fire in you already. I lifted my tear-streaked face, searching his eyes. For a fleeting moment I believed him, but then the phone rang. We both froze. The shrill sound sliced through the silence like a knife. Slowly, the man reached for it, but I stopped him, my hand shaking as I lifted the receiver myself. Hello. Clara's voice poured through the line, smooth and sharp. Margaret, I hope you got my little message. My throat tightened. I glanced at the man, whose eyes told me not to speak, but Clara's voice left me no choice. You see, she continued, her tone almost playful. Trust is such a fragile thing. And right now you have none. So let's make it simple. Tomorrow's delivery? Consider it a test. Pass and your family stays safe. Fail. She paused, her silence more terrifying than words. And you'll find out just how serious I am. The line went dead. I lowered the phone, my hand trembling, my heart sinking. The man's voice was grim. She's tightening the leash. Tomorrow isn't just a delivery, Margaret. It's a trap. The morning of the delivery arrived like a dark cloud hanging over my house. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Clara's cold smile, the glint of her gun, the note tied to that brick. You're already dead, Grandma. I moved through the motions of the morning like a ghost. Coffee tasted bitter. The ticking of the clock was louder than my thoughts. Noon was racing toward me, and with it, a test that could either save or destroy my family. The man, my secret ally, sat at the kitchen table watching me closely. He had barely spoken all morning, but when I slid the small sealed package into my handbag, his voice finally broke the silence. Remember the plan, he said. You walk to the corner of 5th and Main. Drop the package in the alley. Don't talk, don't linger, don't make eye contact. And most important, don't let them see you're scared. I let out a shaky laugh. That's easy for you to say. My knees are knocking just thinking about it. His gaze softened for the first time since I'd met him. Fear is normal. Just don't let it paralyze you. Clara feeds on weakness. I nodded, clutching the strap of my bag like it was the only anchor I had left. And you'll be there? He nodded firmly. I'll be watching. You won't see me, but I'll be there. If anything goes wrong, I'll step in. It wasn't much comfort, but it was all I had. By 11:45, I was on the road. The city looked the same as always. People laughing on sidewalks, cars honking impatiently, a couple of teenagers on bikes weaving through traffic. But I felt like I was walking into another world. Every face looked suspicious. Every sound made me flinch. When I reached 5th and Main, my heart nearly stopped. The alley was narrow, dark, and half-choked with trash bins. A single graffiti-covered wall loomed ahead, casting long shadows. I took a deep breath and stepped inside. My heels clicked against the pavement, the sound far too loud in the silence. I reached the middle of the alley and paused. My bag felt like it weighed 100 pounds. I reached inside, pulled out the small package Clara had given me, and crouched down to place it near the base of a trash bin. It should have been simple. Just drop it and walk away. But before I could stand, a voice came from the shadows. Well, look who Clara sent this time. I froze. Slowly I turned my head. A man stepped out of the dark, tall and broad-shouldered, his eyes cold and cruel. He had a scar running down his cheek, and his smile made my stomach turn. My voice trembled. I was told to leave this here. He chuckled, shaking his head. You think it's that easy, Grandma? No. Clara's little errands always come with strings. And today that string is you. My breath caught. What do you mean? He stepped closer, his boots heavy against the pavement. You don't just drop the package and walk away. You're coming with me. Panic surged in my chest. I stumbled backward, my eyes darting toward the mouth of the alley. But his hand shot out, gripping my arm with bruising strength. Clara wants to see how tough you are, he said, his voice low and threatening. So let's find out. I gasped, struggling against his grip. My mind screamed for help, but my voice caught in my throat. Then movement. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw him. The man. My ally. He was there, just like he promised, slipping out from behind a dumpster, his face hard, his body poised for a fight. Let her go, he barked. The scarred man's head whipped around. His grip on my arm tightened, his other hand reaching into his coat. My heart stopped. He was going for a weapon. Everything happened in a blur. My ally lunged forward, knocking me out of the scarred man's grasp and shoving me toward the wall. I stumbled, nearly falling, as the two men clashed in the middle of the alley. Fists flew, grunts filled the air, and the sound of flesh hitting flesh echoed like thunder. I pressed my back to the cold brick wall, my breath ragged, my body trembling. I wanted to scream, to run, but my feet refused to move. The scarred man swung hard, catching my ally across the jaw. He staggered but didn't fall. With a growl, he slammed his fist into the scarred man's gut, then drove a knee upward. The man grunted, stumbling back, but he wasn't finished. In one swift motion, The scarred man pulled a knife from his belt. The blade gleamed under the faint light, sharp and deadly. My blood ran cold. No! I cried. But it was too late. The scarred man lunged forward, the knife aimed straight at my ally's chest. The blade flashed like lightning as it drove forward. My heart lurched into my throat. In that split second, I thought it was over, that my ally was about to be cut down right in front of me. But he moved fast. With a twist of his body, he dodged just enough that the knife missed his chest and slashed across his arm instead. He grunted, blood blooming against his sleeve, but he didn't falter. Adrenaline surged through me. Run! I cried, though I knew he wouldn't. He caught the scarred man's wrist, twisting hard until the knife clattered to the ground. The sound rang sharp against the alley walls. For a moment, hope flickered in my chest. But the scarred man was strong, stronger than I'd realized. With a roar, he slammed his fist into my ally's ribs, sending him crashing against the dumpster. The metallic thud made me flinch. No! I shouted, rushing forward without thinking. My hands fumbled for anything I could use. My eyes landed on the knife lying on the pavement, its blade glinting under the faint light. I froze. My breath came in shallow gasps. Could I pick it up? Could I really use it? The scarred man turned toward me, his lip curled into a sneer. Stay back, Grandma, or you'll regret it. But I didn't stay back. I dove for the knife, my fingers wrapping around the cold handle. My heart hammered so loud it drowned out everything else. He advanced, slow and deliberate, his shadow stretching long across the alley. Put it down, he growled. Behind him, my ally staggered to his feet, clutching his side, his eyes locking with mine. Margaret, don't hesitate. The scarred man lunged for me. I screamed, raising the knife with trembling hands. And then, sirens. Red and blue lights flashed at the mouth of the alley, cutting through the shadows. The scarred man froze, his head snapping toward the sound. Tires screeched, doors slammed, and heavy boots pounded against the pavement. Police! Drop your weapons! Time seemed to stop. The scarred man's eyes darted between me, the knife in my hand, and the officers rushing in. His lips twisted into a smile, one that chilled me to the bone. Then, before I could react, he bolted deeper into the alley, vanishing into the maze of shadows. 2 officers charged past me, chasing after him, while another stopped short, his gun trained on me. Ma'am, he barked, drop the knife. My blood ran cold. I looked down at my shaking hands, still clutching the blade, crimson smeared across its edge from my ally's wound. To them, I wasn't a victim. I looked like the criminal. Drop it now, the officer barked again, his voice sharp and commanding. The knife trembled in my hand, my knuckles white as I clutched it. My mind screamed at me to obey, but my body felt frozen, paralyzed by the weight of everything that had happened. The flashing red and blue lights painted the alley in dizzying colors. Margaret! My ally hissed from behind me, clutching his bleeding arm. Drop it before they shoot you. That snapped me out of it. With a choked gasp, I let the knife clatter to the ground, raising my hands high in the air. The officer approached carefully, his gun still trained on me. Another rushed over and kicked the knife out of reach. Turn around. Hands on the wall. I didn't do anything wrong, I stammered, my voice trembling. I was attacked. That man, he had the knife, not me. But my words fell flat against their suspicion. They pressed me against the cold brick wall, rough hands patting me down, searching for weapons. I felt humiliation burn my cheeks. 67 years old, treated like a criminal in the middle of the city. Clear, one officer muttered. They turned to my ally, who was hunched over, blood dripping from his sleeve. And who's this? Before he could speak, I blurted out. He saved me. Please, he's hurt, he needs a doctor. The officers exchanged a look. One spoke into his radio, calling for medical backup. Another stepped closer to me, his tone stern. Start talking, ma'am. What were you doing in this alley with a package and a knife? The question made my stomach twist. I couldn't tell them the truth, that Clara had forced me into making the delivery, that I was tangled in something too dangerous for anyone to understand. If I did, Clara would know. She always knew. I was just delivering something, I said carefully. A woman asked me to drop it here. Then that man came out of nowhere and attacked me. The knife wasn't mine. The officer's eyes narrowed. And this woman? What's her name? Panic surged in me. I couldn't say Clara's name, not here, not like this. My mouth opened, but no words came out. The silence was damning. Ma'am, the officer pressed. Are you refusing to answer? My ally, despite his pain, stepped in. She's in shock. You can see she's not a threat. That man with the scar. He's the one you should be chasing. The officer eyed him suspiciously, then gave a curt nod. We'll need statements from both of you. Within minutes, paramedics arrived, tending to my ally's wound while I sat on the back of a squad car, wrapped in a thin blanket. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. Every siren that wailed in the distance made me flinch. A female officer knelt in front of me, her voice softer than the others. Listen, Margaret. We're not here to hurt you, but you need to be honest with us. Why were you in that alley? What was in that package? I stared at her, my heart pounding. The package. I had left it by the trash bin, just like Clara instructed. But what was inside it? Drugs? Money? Something worse? If the police had already found it, then Clara would know I had failed. Tears welled in my eyes. Please, I whispered. I was just doing what I was told. I didn't want to be there. I didn't want any of this. Her brow furrowed. Told by who? Before I could answer, another officer approached, holding a clear evidence bag. Inside was the package. My stomach flipped. Looks like we've got ourselves something interesting, he said, his tone almost smug. This was sitting right where the lady said she left it. The female officer stood, taking the bag. She turned it over in her hands, then looked back at me. Margaret, this isn't the kind of thing an ordinary grandma gets mixed up in. You're in deep. If you don't start talking, it's going to swallow you whole. Her words cut deeper than she realized. She was right. I was already drowning. I lowered my head, my voice breaking. I can't. If I talk, they'll hurt my family. She crouched again, her eyes searching mine. Who will? That man with the scar? Someone else. I shook my head, lips pressed tight. I couldn't say it. Clara's name stayed trapped in my throat like a curse. The officer sighed, standing again. Take her to the station. Maybe she'll feel like cooperating there. My heart sank. The last place I needed to be was the police station. Clara would find out. She always found out. As they guided me toward the car, I glanced back at my ally. He was pale, clutching his bandaged arm, but his eyes locked on mine. He mouthed 2 words before they closed the car door between us. Stay strong. The engine roared to life, and the city blurred past the window as they drove me away. Fear coiled tight in my stomach. I wasn't just caught between the police and Clara anymore. I was caught in a trap with no way out. And deep down I knew. Clara was already waiting for my next mistake. The police station smelled of stale coffee and disinfectant. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, harsh and unforgiving. They led me into a small windowless room with a metal table and 2 chairs. The door shut with a heavy click, locking me in. I sat stiffly, my hands folded in my lap to hide their trembling. My heart wouldn't slow down. Clara's words echoed in my mind. Tomorrow's delivery? Consider it a test. Had I failed? Minutes stretched into an eternity before the female officer from earlier walked in. She set a file on the table, sat across from me, and folded her arms. Margaret, she began, her tone calm but firm, we're trying to help you. But right now things don't look good. You were caught with a package in an alley, alongside 2 violent men. You had a knife in your hand. That's not exactly innocent. Tears burned my eyes. I wasn't the one with the knife. That man, he came out of nowhere. He attacked me. She nodded slowly. And the package? What's in it? I shook my head. I don't know. I swear I don't. Her eyes narrowed. Then why were you delivering it? The truth pressed against my lips like water against a dam. Clara's threats, George's trouble, the grandchildren's names written on that terrible note. I wanted to pour it all out, to beg them to protect me. But I couldn't. If Clara found out I had talked, the cost would be too high. I was just doing a favor for someone, I whispered, staring at my lap. I didn't ask questions. The officer leaned back, sighing. Margaret, favors like this get people killed. Whoever roped you into this doesn't care about you. They're using you. And if you keep protecting them, you're going down with them. Her words stung because they were true. I knew it. But still, my lips stayed sealed. A knock at the door interrupted. Another officer poked his head in. Lieutenant, you'll want to see this. She frowned, excused herself, and stepped out. I sat alone, the silence pressing in. My pulse quickened. Something wasn't right. Then I saw it. Slipped under the door. A folded piece of paper white against the gray tile floor. My blood ran cold. I leaned down, my fingers trembling as I picked it up and unfolded it. Inside, written in bold, sharp letters, were just 4 words. Stop talking. Or else. My breath caught. My stomach twisted. Clara had reached me, even here inside a locked police station. The door opened again, and the female officer stepped back in, holding a file. She froze when she saw my face, pale and shaken, the note clutched in my hand. What's that? She demanded. But I couldn't answer. Because I knew in that moment nowhere was safe. The officer's eyes darted to the paper in my trembling hands. Margaret, she said sharply. What is that? Who gave it to you? I stammered. It was on the floor. Someone slid it under the door. Her brows furrowed. She strode forward, snatched the note and scanned it. Her jaw tightened. Stop talking or else, she read aloud, her voice clipped. How the hell? She spun toward the door, yanking it open, barking orders into the hallway. But my body was frozen. I sat stiff in the metal chair, cold sweat dampening my back. Clara had reached into the one place I thought I was safe. If she could send me a note here, she could do anything. The officer returned minutes later, shutting the door harder than before. Nobody saw anyone near this room. No cameras caught a thing. Either someone inside this station is feeding information to whoever you're mixed up with. Or they've got eyes everywhere. Her words twisted in my gut. The walls seemed to close in around me. She leaned on the table, lowering her voice. Margaret, listen to me. You are in serious danger. Whoever this woman is, she's powerful. But if you don't tell me who she is, I can't help you. I pressed my trembling hands together, whispering. You don't understand. If I say her name, if I tell you anything, my family will pay for it. Her expression softened, but only slightly. And if you don't talk, she'll keep using you until there's nothing left. Is that what you want? I looked down at my lap, blinking away hot tears. I don't have a choice. The officer exhaled, frustrated. She slid the note into the file and snapped it shut. Then you leave me no choice. You're staying here tonight. Protective custody. We'll sort this out in the morning. My heart dropped. Here? In the station? She nodded firmly. Yes. It's safer than letting you walk out into the open. Whoever's after you won't get to you here. But I knew better. Clara had already gotten in. The officer stood and left me alone again. The clock on the wall ticked slowly, each second like a hammer striking stone. I wrapped my arms around myself, shivering in the stale air. Hours crawled by. At some point, they brought me a paper cup of coffee, though my hands shook too much to drink it. I dozed off briefly, my head against the table. But every creak in the hallway jerked me awake. Then, sometime after midnight, I heard it. A voice. Faint, muffled, but unmistakable. Margaret. My blood froze. I lifted my head, my eyes darting around the empty room. The door was shut, the walls bare. Yet the voice came again, slithering through the air like smoke. Margaret, darling, did you really think you could hide from me? Clara. Her voice seeped from the vent above the table. I stumbled to my feet, staring up in horror. You've been very naughty, she purred, her tone both sweet and venomous. Talking to the police, letting them sniff around my business. That's not what good grandmothers do, is it? I shook my head violently, whispering. No, I didn't say anything. Her laugh echoed through the vent, cold and sharp. Oh, but you thought about it. I can feel it. And that, Margaret, is enough to make me wonder where your loyalties truly lie. Tears streamed down my face. I looked around desperately, as if someone could help me. But the walls seemed to trap me in Clara's grip. Don't worry, she continued. I'll give you another chance. Tomorrow night. I'll send someone for you. Don't resist. Don't run. Or else. Her voice trailed off, replaced by silence. I collapsed back into the chair, sobbing quietly. How could she reach me even here? How deep did her roots go? The door opened suddenly, and the female officer stepped in, carrying a stack of files. She stopped when she saw my face. Margaret, what happened? I opened my mouth to tell her. To tell her Clara had spoken to me through the vents. That she was everywhere, that I couldn't escape. But then I remembered the note. Stop talking. Or else. If Clara had ears here, if she was listening through the vents, then anything I said could be the end for my family. So I forced a weak smile, wiping my cheeks. And nothing. Just tired. The officer frowned but didn't push. She set the files down and muttered something about getting me a cot to sleep on. When she left again, I curled into the chair, hugging myself tight. Sleep was impossible. My mind raced in endless circles. And then, just when I thought I couldn't take any more, something slid under the door again. Another folded note. My hands shook as I picked it up, dreading what I'd see. This time, there were only 2 words written in bold, jagged letters. Tomorrow midnight. I sat in that gray interrogation room all night, staring at the 2 words on the paper like they were carved into my skin. Tomorrow midnight. Tomorrow. It wasn't an invitation. It was an order. By the time morning came, my eyes burned from sleeplessness, my body aching from the stiff chair. The female officer returned, cheerful with a cup of coffee in her hand. Morning, Margaret. Didn't get much sleep, huh? I forced a nod, my lips too dry to speak. She slid the coffee toward me. We've got some movement on your case. My captain wants to meet with you. If you cooperate, maybe we can get you some protection for your family. But we need you to start naming names. Her kindness should have comforted me. Instead, it felt like another trap. If I spoke, Clara would know. If I stayed silent, the police would lose patience, and maybe turn against me. I mumbled, I need time. She studied me for a long moment, then nodded. Time is something we don't have much of, Margaret. But I'll buy you a little. When she left, I crumpled the note in my hand and pressed it against my chest. Clara's voice haunted me still, echoing from that vent. I'll send someone for you. The rest of the day blurred. Officers came and went, asking questions, filling out paperwork, treating me like both a victim and a suspect. My ally, the man who had saved me in the alley, was nowhere in sight. I prayed he hadn't been arrested, that he was out there waiting, watching. By evening, they gave me a small cot in a side room, away from the bustle. The walls were thin, the fluorescent light buzzing overhead, the blanket scratchy and thin. I curled beneath it, clutching my handbag like it was armor. Sleep refused to come. Every sound in the hallway, every distant phone ringing, every shuffle of papers made me jump. Midnight crept closer, each tick of the clock dragging me toward Clara's deadline. At 11:45, my stomach churned with dread. I sat upright on the cot, staring at the door. Would she send someone to drag me out? Would the walls bleed her voice again? The minutes crawled. My heart pounded so loudly I thought the guards outside must hear it. Then, just as the clock struck 12, the door handle clicked. I froze. The door opened, and a man in uniform stepped inside. He wore the badge of the station, his hat pulled low. His face was shadowed by the dim light, but his voice was clear as he said, "Margaret, it's time." My blood ran cold. "No," I whispered, shaking my head. "No, I can't." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Clara sent me. You either walk out quietly with me now or things get ugly. Your choice." My hands clutched the blanket, knuckles white. Fear surged through me, choking me. The station was supposed to be safe, but Clara had her claws in even here. "Please," I begged. "Don't make me go." The man's lips curled into a hard smile. "You don't have a choice, Grandma." Before I could scream, he reached into his coat and pulled out a pair of handcuffs. The metallic click echoed like a death knell. The cold steel of the handcuffs bit into my wrists as the man clicked them shut. My heart pounded like a drum, my mouth dry as sand. "You don't need to fight," he said, almost gently, though his grip on my arm was like iron. "Clara just wants a word." A word. No one like Clara ever wanted just a word. He marched me through a side exit of the police station, past guards who didn't even blink. My stomach twisted. She had people everywhere, even here. By the time I was shoved into the back of a black sedan parked in the shadows, I realized something that chilled me to the bone. There was no safe place left in this world. The ride was silent, save for the steady hum of the engine. My eyes darted to the windows, the darkened streets blurring past. Part of me wanted to throw myself against the door, to scream, to claw my way out. But another part, the part that remembered Clara's icy voice whispering through vents, the notes that slipped under locked doors, knew escape wasn't possible. After what felt like an eternity, the car stopped. The door opened and I was yanked out into the night air. My feet stumbled on gravel as I was led toward an old warehouse at the edge of town, its windows broken, its metal siding rusted with age. A single light glowed inside. The man unlocked the door and shoved me through. And there she was, Clara. She stood in the center of the warehouse like a queen on her throne, dressed immaculately in black, her heels clicking softly as she turned toward me. That smile, sharp, knowing, cruel, spread across her face. "Margaret," she said, her voice dripping with honey and venom. "Finally. We meet properly." My knees threatened to give out, but I forced myself to stand tall, the cuffs cold around my wrists. "Why are you doing this to me?" I whispered. Clara's eyes sparkled. "Because you are useful. You may think you're just an ordinary grandmother, but you've proven something far more valuable. You're loyal. Even under pressure, even with the police breathing down your neck, you didn't betray me. That kind of loyalty is rare." Loyal. That word cut me. She wasn't praising me, she was claiming me. "I don't want to be part of this," I said, my voice cracking. "I just want my family safe." Clara stepped closer, her perfume sweet but suffocating. "And they are safe. For now. But safety comes with a price, Margaret. Do you understand?" Tears welled in my eyes. "Please. I'm begging you. Let me go. Let me live out what little life I have left in peace." Her smile thinned. "Peace is for the weak. You've already proven you're stronger than that. You made the delivery. You held the knife. You faced the police without betraying me. That makes you one of mine now. One of hers." The words echoed in my chest like a death sentence. Before I could respond, a noise cut through the warehouse. Footsteps. Heavy, fast. My heart leapt as my ally burst through the door, his arms still bandaged, his face determined. "Let her go, Clara," he shouted, his voice echoing against the metal walls. Clara laughed, a low melodic sound. "Ah, the stray dog returns. Always meddling. Always bleeding." He raised his gun, his hand steady despite the wound. "This ends tonight." Time seemed to stop. Clara's smile vanished, replaced by cold fury. She nodded toward the man who had dragged me here. He pulled his own gun, pointing it at my ally. For a moment the warehouse was a storm waiting to break. Guns raised, lives hanging by a thread. And then it did break. The sound of gunfire cracked the air. I screamed, dropping to the floor as bullets ricocheted off metal beams. My ears rang, my chest heaved, my eyes squeezed shut. When I opened them, the scene had changed. The man who dragged me here lay motionless on the ground, blood pooling beneath him. My ally staggered, clutching his side, but he was still standing. And Clara? Clara stood untouched, her gun steady, her eyes locked on me. "Margaret," she said calmly, as if we weren't surrounded by death. "Choose." My breath hitched. "See, choose." She tilted her head. "Him or me. Stay loyal to the man who saved you, and I'll end both your lives tonight. Or accept your place at my side, and he dies alone." The world spun. My hands shook violently against the cuffs. She was forcing me into the cruelest corner, betrayal either way. My ally's voice broke through the haze, hoarse but urgent. Don't give in to her, Margaret. Don't let her win." Clara's eyes narrowed. "Well." Tears blurred my vision. My family's faces flashed in my mind, my grandchildren, innocent and unaware of the danger stalking their lives. George, broken and foolish but still mine. And me, a grandmother who never asked for this, now standing in the crosshairs of evil. I lifted my chin, forcing strength into my trembling voice. "I choose neither." And with all the courage I didn't know I had, I hurled myself sideways into Clara, slamming my shoulder against her arm. The gun went off, the shot ringing through the warehouse, but the weapon clattered to the floor. My ally dove for it, his hand closing around the grip. He swung it up, aiming it at Clara before she could recover. Her eyes blazed, but for the first time I saw something I never thought possible. Fear. "Don't," she hissed. My ally's finger hovered on the trigger. "It's over." For a long moment the world held its breath. Then slowly he lowered the gun. Not to spare her, but to press it into my hands. "Your choice, Margaret," he said softly. The weight of the gun settled into my palms, heavier than anything I'd ever held. Clara stared at me, her smile gone, her mask cracked. I had never killed. I had never even thought I could. But now, standing in that warehouse, I realized the truth. Life sometimes forces choices on you. Choices you never imagined. I raised the gun, my hand steady. Clara's eyes widened, just slightly as I spoke. "No one threatens my family." The shot echoed through the night. When the smoke cleared, Clara lay still, her reign of terror ended. I dropped the gun, my body shaking, tears streaming down my face. My ally placed a hand on my shoulder, his voice gentle. "You did what you had to do." The police arrived minutes later, swarming the warehouse. They took my statement, though I gave them only what they needed. Clara was gone. Her power, her grip on my life, it ended here. Weeks later, back in my quiet home, I sat at the kitchen table, my grandchildren's laughter drifting from the living room. The nightmare was over, but the scars remained. And that's when I turned to you, the viewers, the listeners of my story. "My name is Margaret," I said, my voice steady despite the storm I'd survived. "I'm 67 years old, from the southern part of the United States. If you followed me this far, don't forget to like, subscribe, and click that notification button so you don't miss stories like this one. And please, tell me where you're watching from. I want to know how far my voice reaches." I leaned closer, my tone firm. "And remember this. Never underestimate yourself. Even the quietest soul, the most ordinary grandmother, can rise up when pushed to the edge. Fear is powerful, but courage changes everything." The screen faded on my words, leaving behind the lesson that had nearly cost me everything. Family is worth fighting for. Always.